Hey, welcome back. Well, a few things have happened since our last Honda Express adventure. The orange one with the baskets, as opposed to the orange one without the baskets. The orange one with the baskets, the 78 Express. My buddy, good friend Clint, decided he couldn't live without it, and so he purchased it from me. I think I only had it for a few days. It was a joyous time, a joyous occasion. Parting is such sweet sorrow. Anyhow, I kept the baskets, and I'll be putting them on the 77 Express because although the baskets look goofy as hell, they are very convenient. They are amazingly convenient. So, I've got a bike with baskets. I don't know what that means, but it means I can have both hands on the handlebar. For one, it means I can carry gas in moped rallies. I can carry beer in moped rallies. I can carry tools in moped rallies. I can carry lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I don't know. Anyways, so Clint is hard at work. Now I got that one running. It runs great. But Clint is hard at work de-rusting that, and I've been lending a hand, at least a little bit. So, excuse me. I got an ignition switch that I had ordered before he expressed an interest in the bike, and so I received that today, and the ignition switch went to him, or yesterday, whenever, and he in April installed it. So anyhow, I came across the subject of this video, a 1978 Honda NC50 engine for sale, complete with carburetor, intake, top end, no spark plug, no stator cover, but those are minor deficiencies. The starter arm, it needs a new starter arm, at least on that side. No big deal. And then, this gave me pause. That's supposed to be straight. I have no idea how that gets bent. That's a new one. When you thought you'd seen it all, you really haven't seen much of anything. I don't know. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Anyhow, the seller happened to live or do business maybe 20 minutes away from me. So, instead of paying $60 shipping, I did 40 minutes of driving. Burned a little gas, but I think it was worth it. Now, when I got there and saw the engine, I knew it was a wind-up start engine. And so I asked him, does the wind-up start work? That's like the most critical thing to me. Because if that doesn't work, this spring down in there, see that spring underneath that sprocket or gear, whatever it is? I think it's a sprocket. I don't know all the nomenclature for this, the internals of this thing yet, but we'll get there. But anyhow, that spring I guess there's some new old stock ones floating around, but there's a bunch of used ones floating around, and generally $100 is the minimum asking price. So I don't want to buy an engine and, you know, find out that I got another $100 involved. Anyhow, he said, yeah, the spring is fine, and he wound up the starter. But, you know, I'm used to the starter, you basically wind and it catches, wind, catches, wind, catches, wind, stops. You wind it about 4 times. But every time you push it down, you can hear this thing wind and stop, wind and stop, wind and stop, wind and stop. And this one wouldn't do that. It would go wind, unwind, wind, unwind, wind, unwind, wind, unwind. And so I'm like, what's the deal? You know, is something wrong in there? You know, this starter arm is supposed to catch and stop something, but it's not doing it. What's the problem? So, you know, I said, you know, something's wrong internally there, and, you know, I don't think I want this engine. But I'd driven all the way out there. He had driven out there. I kind of felt bad. Seemed like, you know, it was something that he wasn't aware of. He said he'd had this in storage sitting on the shelf for ages and didn't know what the deal was with it. It'd been so long. So I said, well, I'm thinking something's wrong here. And, you know, we had basically a price that was pretty much agreed to as long as everything was, you know, relatively decent. I mean, I understand it's a 40-year-old engine and, you know, there's going to be some issues, some minor issues, but if there's anything major, well, we got to renegotiate. So we renegotiated it, and I renegotiated with the thought in mind that this was going to be a project and I'm going to have to fix something unknown. So, blah blah blah. I'm just yakking away. So I did spend quite a bit of time getting these screws out. Basically, I had to Dremel, you know, because most of them were stripped already. Some were missing. That also gave me pause. I had to Dremel out that and then I broke my Phillips head on the impact driver doing this. So I had to Dremel it out and use the flathead on the impact driver on just about every one of these, and I think there's 16, 8, 10, 12, 14, 6, 17. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 6. There's 17 of those stupid screws. All the ones a drain plug you can get out with a 10mm socket. But anyhow, I'll be replacing all of them except the drain plug with Allen head bolts, which are much easier to get in and out. But so I don't know. I opened this up to see what was going on, and I think everything is there. The main gear is behind. The main gear is there. It's just hiding back there. And whoops, sorry. The carburetor was on it. Didn't come with the caps or the choke or the slide or whatever, but whatever, no big deal. And the center stand came with it. The air filter bracket came with it, and so I spent some time scraping off the gasket. Of course, I don't have another gasket. I'll have to order one, the gasket for this whole cover. And I may go ahead and replace the seal behind this clutch since I have the proper puller finally. And with the proper puller, it is a lot easier job. Maybe I'll show replacement of the left side crankshaft bearing seal on video. But one reason I make these videos is to help others out. The other reason I make it is to help myself out, because what I can do is look back on this video and try to compare it with the faded out repair manual where you can't make out anything in the pictures. I wish I'd done a video when I had my other one open so I could compare the two, but maybe somebody out there might be able to see something that I can't and tell me something's missing, but I don't think anything's missing. There's a washer that was bad in the other one that's also bad in this one. This thing gets all, I mean, I assume it's supposed to be flat, but it's all bent up. But I think I can replace that easily enough. And I guess I had to look into a complete seal kit for this, because there's a seal there. There might be one behind that. No, there's probably not one. There's one there. There's the crankshaft seal there. Anyways, the first time I ever opened up one of these, it was a bit intimidating, especially since I had the wrong clutch puller. But really, it's not that bad. And I've seen posts on Moped Army where people have trouble getting these back together properly, but again, you know, you basically line this with that, this with that, this with that, and then the final gear with this, and you got to rotate the stator this way while you push the cover on. That kind of helps it go on. And then what you can kind of do is run some of those Allen bolts through and, you know, tighten them up in the corners a little bit and kind of squeeze it together. And I think there's some alignment you have to do with one of the starter gears as well, but not as bad as it seems. And if your Honda Express is burning white smoke, probably means it's burning the oil that goes in here, because it's getting sucked through that seal behind the clutch and into the engine and burned. So you got to replace that seal. The right side seal is a piece of cake in terms of getting to and getting it out, or at least a lot easier than this side, although once you've done it a couple times, this side isn't so bad. But anyways, actually, after taking off the cover on my Urban Express several hundred times, I was a lot less intimidated about taking the cover off the regular Express. I kind of had to, because I got tired of it burning, blowing white smoke all over the neighborhood. But so there you have it. I've got a starter arm to get. Oh, did I finish my story? I don't think I finished my story. How long ago have we been going? Okay, I'm going to wrap this up here in about 30 seconds. Don't worry. Hang on. I know it's slow, but this is vital information. This is important information. Someone's life could hang in the balance. Oh, the rest of the story. Well, as I was taking this apart and looking at it, and it didn't seem like anything was wrong. By the way, that washer goes behind that gear there, I believe. Or sprocket, whatever you want to call it. and you can check the teeth for wear. I think they should be kind of square at the top, which they still kind of are, instead of, if they're too pointy, they've been worn quite a bit. Of course, where are you going to get a new one of those, right? Unless it's new old stock. But yeah, I was going to wrap up this story about 30 seconds ago. So I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I look over at my other one, and I'm like, maybe what catches or stops, you know, you wind and stop, maybe what's catching that is you got to have the brake line attached through that guide and starter arm, and the tension from the brake line causes the starter arm to catch something, right? I mean, does it catch the sprocket? I don't think so. I mean, the sprocket's not that big. Well, I'm thinking that brake line needs to be attached so that that starter arm can function properly and somehow stop the winding action. That's the best I can come up with. Because someone tried to get this cover off, and I don't think they got it off. Because those screws, some of those screws, most of them were stripped. I think someone tried to get it off and gave up. And maybe out of frustration, took a hammer to that. I don't know. I mean, how does that happen? Are we in the picture? Took a hammer to that. That's craziness. I don't know what's going on, man. It's a mystery. Every bike has a story about its former owners or owner, usually plural. And for some reason, somebody was monkeying with this. They took off the stator cover on the other side and left it off, so they were monkeying with that side. Why they thought they needed to get to this side, I'm not sure. Except to say, I'll show you this starter arm. So see, this should have a top on it. And if it doesn't have a top, the brake line's going to slip through there, I believe. And it's not going to work. So unless they didn't realize that this was a key component. Now I could be wrong on all this, but this is what I'm thinking, how it works. So unless they didn't realize that this was the problem and they thought it was in here somewhere, that's the only thing I can think of. I'll think about it more. See what you can come up with. But here, we'll get a close-up while we're panning over this stuff. So there's the spring and sprocket, the starter chain. So the this connects on the other side of this, I believe, and you turn it and it winds, and something's got to catch this. But this fits right in here. I guess the clutch arms must catch that sprocket. And then this has to catch something, and I'm not sure what this catches, what that stops. Because you release that and it releases everything. So, and you've got this going in there. So unless there's something missing on that, then all this is complete, and then there's the final gear there. I think they had transmission fluid in this thing because it's red. But anyways, unless something is missing on that, I'll have to read up on it. Hey, thanks for watching. It's a mystery.